Hey guys, this is Jacolia of Jacolia Gems. Thank you for once again coming back home, family. For those of you that happen to be new here for the very first time, I hope that you hear something today that will persuade you to stay. Now, if you have not already done so, exactly what are you waiting for? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. Like the video, comment down below, share to your social media platforms. So, today's video is not going to be very long, just, a little informational on spiritual warfare. Maybe kind of like a story time, yo no sé. Pero escúchame. So, I want to talk about demonic altars and familiar spirits. And I'll go more in depth into these things at a later date. So, when we think about the word familiar, we have to look at the root word family. Something that's not foreign, native to, indigenous. We have to apply all of these words: ancestral, generational, bloodline. So when we begin to think about these, we need to realize that it not only means that which carries on through our DNA, it also has to do with the families that our families have connected to throughout the generations, because these are people, places, and things that you have become familiar with. We have to realize that this also means that things and events that took place before you were even here. Let's be biblical in this. When we began to look at the book of Exodus, when the Most High began to say, visiting the iniquity. What is iniquity? The sin. What is sin? Sin is lawlessness, according to the book of John. We allow the Bible to define the Bible. Visiting the iniquities of those that hate me. Who are the people that hate him? The people who transgress and do not keep his law. How do we know? Because he said, if you love me, keep my commandment. So if you don't keep his law, if you don't display faith by keeping his law, statutes, and commandments, because the faith doctrine is not new. Abraham showed faith in Sinai. He showed faith when he left the Ur of Chaldean. He showed faith when he built an altar and poured out a libation. He showed faith when he began to petition with the deity and negotiate for Sodom and Gomorrah to not be destroyed if a certain amount of righteous people were there. He displayed faith by keeping the law. So when we begin to look, I said, visiting the iniquities of those that hate me upon the third and fourth generations. So the sin that I do today, no man shall die for the sin of another. That's Old Testament law. The death of a righteous person can be used as an atonement for a sinful nation. When we begin to look at Miriam, and she died, and then the next chapter was juxtaposed, meaning in comparison, in relation to the red heifer being used as a sacrifice, when Yeshua Bar Yosef, or Jesus the Messiah, was executed based off of being accused of blaspheming, because people thought he was equating himself with the Most High, and that's blaspheming because no one is equal or co-eternal with him. But his name was present, and his name was on the inside of him, making him an ambassador. So when you see him, you see the Father. Just like if my father, when I was a part of his church, when he would send me out to speak, to preach, and do different things, I was an ambassador of Robert Ramonte Holiday, an ambassador of Patricia Ann Holiday, but I was still myself. So he was an ambassador when they took him up on charges of witchcraft, sorcery, for healing the sick and raising the dead. When the Pharisees challenged him for breaking the law, for breaking the Sabbath, and he had to begin to quote the oral tradition to them and say, hey, nope, I haven't done these things, because I'm keeping the law of the traveler, the stranger, and the sojourner. according to the oral tradition of which you challenged me by. So no man can die for the sins of another. The iniquity of that generation will be shown 3 to 4 generations. So by the 4th generation, 400 years of trauma, of PTSD, of sin, of debauchery, your bloodline should be able to rework itself by going back to the laws, statutes, and commandments. So it's not a coincidence that this 4th generation is starting to wake up. This is biblical. So we have to think about our forefathers and foremothers that did not keep the laws, statutes, and commandments, and the type of witchcraft that they were doing to get us brought over here into. Some of us came over here in transatlantic slave trade. Some of us were Native Americans over here doing hoodoo. Some of us brought over voodoo and turned it into voodoo. Some of our ancestors were venerating the Orishas alongside of Catholic saints. Some of our ancestors were Freemasons in the temple, worshiping the Baphomet, Papa Legba, Muhammad. Some of our ancestors were wicked, wicked, wicked people. And such were some of us. We have to realize that the familiar spirits also means that the people that you have laid with, that you have come into relationship with, is business-wise, school-wise, just any type of thing, anybody that you have a contract with, whether it be verbal, written, blood, spoken, unspoken, these things which are familiar to you, even the foods that you eat. We have to begin to think about science, right? And we have to take a walk, correct? When you think about a pig, when you think about a crab, when you think about an oyster, when you think about a mussel, when you think about a scallop, when you think about catfish and tilapia, so on and so forth, the pH balance of these things are automatically rendering them unclean. Therefore, when we take it into our human body that's supposed to have a certain pH balance in our gut, and the acidic nature of our gut is thrown off, because your gut has to have a certain type of amount of acid in it to be able to literally break down the components of the food. But if the acid in the stomach is lowered down too much in correlation with the acid of your food, then lies a fire on the inside of you. And this is where you get your messed up gallbladders and your cervical cancer and your prostate issues and your high blood pressure and your high cholesterol and your consistent BV, your consistent thrush, your consistent yeast infections, your asthma and your eczema from the overeating of soy and dairy and unnatural chemically processed foods, as well as that which it is that's supposed to clean up nature, that have been rendered unclean. And if something has been rendered unclean, that means that we are not supposed to touch it. We are not supposed to eat it. This goes into the Noahic laws that was given to the nations. One deity said, take 2 of every creature, and this will be clean and this is unclean. This one said, take 2 of every creature and then take 7 of the clean. Like we have to look at this, right? This was after the Great Deluge. So that means that the law of what to eat in those terms were already etched out for the nations. So there are certain things that the nations, the Goyim, the sons of Noah, Japhetic, Hamitic, and Semitic, are and are not supposed to eat. Then we see after the Great Deluge that these Malek, these border crossers, began to do, whether you want to say scientific or physical crossbreeding against mankind, womankind, against the earth, against animals, everything became polluted. And then mankind got on one accord. And that's when the nations were divvied up amongst the Benai Elohim. And no one can deny that the Benai Elohim exist. And just because it says sons does not mean that he did not have daughters. We begin to look at language. Let's look at Spanish, nosotros. That's a group. And it ending on an OS does not only mean man. It can mean man and woman. And we look at Elohim. That's rooted in the feminine. And this is not divine inspiration to say that it's only one God and he's just pretending and this is algorithmic. When we begin to look into the other Near Eastern cultures, even into the world cultures, like everybody's creation story says that these deities existed. This hierarchy existed. This divine council existed. So when Yod-Heh-Wav selected a people, there were certain animals that this people group were told that they could not have, they could not consume. And if you are a Bible-believing person, and even if you are a person just of nature, there are certain things that you are not supposed to consume, and the uncleanness that comes along with it. In the book of Isaiah, it becomes prophesied that when the Mashiach comes, anybody that is found hiding behind the tree, eating the mouse and the abomination, you got to go into the book of Leviticus to see what's deemed abominable, will be cut off. When we begin to look into the fact, that in the New Testament, when Yeshua Bar Yosef, who was known to battle water spirits, y'all don't want to talk about that though. He was known to battle water spirits. He said, "Peace be still." Why was the disciples scared of the spirit that was in the waters? Okay, so when he began to battle water spirits and these unclean spirits that was on the inside of this man that was called legions, meaning many, and in Rome, many represent the number, legion represent at least 1,000 soldiers. So when we began to think about this, those spirits spoke to him, gave him name, and he had to identify it by name to root it out and send it into an unclean source. And that herd of pigs ran into the water. Let's think about Genesis, the first chapter, the first 2 verses, when it talks about total chaos and total destruction. And we see that repeated again in the book of Isaiah. We've stated it could be lined up with the book of Psalms, the 4th chapter, Job 38, Job 41, Proverbs 8. When we begin to talk about the world before the world, Ecclesiastics. And even when we talk about the great delusion, the time of Noah, we have to know the Rephaim took place. And the reason that we are not supposed to fraction idols after what's in the heavens above and the earth below, it's because these things existed. And when the Most High gave us permission to use the seraph as a healing amulet, our people began to offer sacrifices to the deity and the representation thereof versus worshiping him. Case in point, all of the religions that I just named, idol synchronization. So it's not the symbol that's evil, it's the worship thereof and a lack of self-control amongst Black people to want to worship that which was used as an arm, as an extension, as a hand to heal. And this is the problem that we do when we begin to worship Jesus and not the Most High. It's ancestral worship. We're supposed to venerate our ancestors and thank the Most High for our ancestors that came before us. Every time we begin to talk about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Deborah, all of these people, Yeshua, we are venerating our ancestors. Every time I mention my mother, my grandfather, I'm venerating my ancestors. That's a Hebraic custom. When we set up an idol to these people and offer them cakes and seek for aborigines to bring them up, that's exactly what King Saul was found doing with the Obeah woman. That's literally what it's saying in Hebrew. The medicine woman, the conjurer. You know what? I can't even call her a conjurer because she wasn't conjuring. She was operating as an anchor between death and life. And she did not have to speak as a medium because Samuel spoke for himself. But she was operating as the anchor to open up death and life for him to come up. This is because these Near Eastern people knew how to navigate death. This is seen in the hieroglyphics. Spiritual warfare goes deeper than we think it is. We have attached ourselves to many things that we do not realize. All of these holidays have gods over it. All of these celebrations have gods over it. We have become blind witches and warlocks. And the more that we deny it, the further and further our generations get away from righteousness and a chance to salvation. And time is winding down. Time is winding down. What ancestor spirits are in your family? Do you see a consistent battle with fertility issues, homosexuality, lesbianism, poverty, anger, doubt, worry, fear, anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolarism, ADHD, OCD? Like, what do you see? Overspending, gluttony, high blood pressure, low blood pressure, consistent molestation. What patterns do you see chasing your family? These are your family's familiar spirits. This is one of the reasons why it is important for identity. When you find out who you are, when you find out from whence you came, when you find out from the activities attached to these people groups, then you can begin to find out what gods we were serving in those regions, so that you can begin to pray and ask the Most High to reveal unto you ancestral altars. And I'm going to tell you that it works. About 3 years ago, 2 years ago specifically, but about 3 years ago, some chaotic things began to happen. 2 years specifically, some things began to happen to literally attempt to snatch my children, specifically my son, away from me. And I saw these things taking place about 5 years ago. And I remember I would be on the phone with my mother. And I would say X, Y, and Z are planning X, Y, and Z. And she would tell me, well, T, I believe you. And this is why I believe you. And I've not said anything because I've been waiting for this conversation to happen between us. So if X, Y, and Z are planning A, B, and C, and if X, Y, and Z begins to happen, it'll just fall back on A. Because your hands are clean in this area. So I began to prepare for the possibilities that which it is that the Holy Spirit was revealing to me. And things happened the way that they happened. And I had to remember that if I faced the east, because that's literally what I did when things began to fall apart. I faced the east. And I began to utter a Hebraic tongue and just began to cry out and thank the Most High. Over the course of the past 6 months, I started, even though I've prayed this before, I prayed specifically about 3 months ago that the Most High literally reveals to me certain things, but I'm going to share one thing in particular. I prayed that the Most High revealed to me the ancestral altar. Even though it's multiple. That someone in particular has sacrificed my child to. Or a conglomerate have attempted to sacrifice my child to. And I had an open vision about it. And I kept it tucked. And I said no thing. And I had a wide open vision. When I tell you, I saw the altar. I saw what it looked like. I saw the things that was being done on it. I saw who was doing it. And I said no thing about it. I had a conversation about 3 months ago with an individual who shares something very close to my son. And they began to talk to me about some spiritual concerns that they was having as well. And they told me, hey, when I was so-and-so, I saw this altar. And it was high. No. They said when I was so-and-so, I saw this altar. No, I saw this. I want to be correct. I saw this that looked like something in this location. And I said, hey, did it look like do? And I sent them a picture. And they messaged me back and said it looked exactly like this. How do you know that? And I said, because I asked the Holy Spirit to reveal it to me, and you just confirmed it to me. It was an altar. Florida ceiling altar. Wood altar. Dark altar. That looked like it had blood on it. And it had a triangle and an eye in the middle. Looked like one of them old wooden pipe organs in somebody's house. It's not the only one. Trinkets of Oshun surrounding the family. It's just many, many things that the Most High will reveal to you if you seek Him. We have to stop believing that we're not battling spiritually and you live in check to check. Stop thinking you're not battling spiritually and you can't stop masturbating. You can't stop lying. You can't stop cheating. You can't stop overeating. You can't stop having ruminating thoughts. Your hair falling out. You're losing weight. You're gaining weight. You're breaking out. You're going through drama on your job, drama in your marriage, drama in this, that, and but you don't think that you are battling spiritually? And just because things are all hunky-dory for you don't mean that you're not battling. Some people succumb. I just wanted to touch bases with y'all and tell y'all that there's more than meets the eye. And that if you pray for a thing, the Most High will reveal it to you. There's much to be said about familiar spirits, water spirits, ancestral witchcraft. Y'all beware and protect your seed and protect your womb. And above all, we got to stop lying to ourselves about the paganisms behind these celebrations and the fact that we've become blind witches and warlocks, and we have even sacrificed our children unto idols when we celebrate these holidays. So, hey, this is Jacolia of Jacolia Gems. Food for thought.